Welcome everybody, good morning. Special thanks to our Freedom Riders that came. Our superintendent is here as well, Mr. Morrison. We have a lot of other very special people here with us from all over the state, Hinds County, Oxford, and special thanks to the first African American woman to teach in Rankin County, Miss Dorothy Cannon.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom. Ain't no harm to keep your mind set on freedom.
19 is a very, it's an age where you plan the rest of your life, pretty much. I mean, you decide to go to college, you decide to go to school. How did that affect you, considering that you're just this teenager and, you're going to join this huge movement to alter history in the end? I mean, how could you just decide that you needed to do this? What gave you that motivation?
To be in the movement?
Yes.
I was ashamed and grieved by the behavior of the white people where I lived. And I wanted to end it. One of the first things that hit me the hardest, I was 13 when Emmett Till was killed. And I really couldn't emotionally handle that. And the black people in Mississippi, that made them afraid. It made me heartbroken. I was ashamed of that. I just knew people were hurt because of the system that we had, and I felt a strong urge to make my position known on that. And I still like that at some point when things are so bad that you can't tolerate them either because they're hurting you or because you know they're morally wrong, that you just say no, stand up and say no. And I sort of like the idea, we all like the idea that you guys take over, find the things that you think are intolerable that are happening, and just stand up and say no.
You know Bull Connor?
I remember, yes.
Okay, I just know like he's just real bad, man. Like he
bad.
describes me like
The worst, maybe, yeah.
what do you think about him? Like things that he done?
Well, he was just this big name of awful people who had a lot of power. He's Birmingham, right?
I think so.
I never met him, but he was. We just knew he was awful. He was worse than George Wallace. It was pretty bad. yeah. I saw an Alabama governor who's 90-something at one of the reunion kinds of things that we go to sometimes. And he had made a speech, and after his speech I asked him, John Patterson, one of the worst. I asked him, well, when did you change your mind and decide that you were not awful, or whatever I said, not for segregation? He said, I've never been a segregationist in all my life. And I just kind of, I have no idea how but a lot of white people now are pretending that they never had these opinions. Thank God I got the mugshot to prove I did.
Yes, sir. I know you have a question.
Read my mind.
Yes, sir.
So, through this whole story, what I've heard is, that you said the church said that, the Freedom Riders were just a rambunctious, event, and that, the police officer just assumed that you were a Freedom Rider, and that therefore you were put in jail. And then after all of that, your mom took you home and, punished you for that. And you were only 13. I mean, 13 years of age is years of that's where you get somewhat of mindset. So how is it that you told yourself, look, this is wrong, I need to take a stand, while it seemed like you just got punished and hurt for everything that happened to you, even like when you got drafted, you didn't even sign up for it. So how did you get your mindset to where this was wrong?
That's a darn good question. The first part, my mom and my beating, it was a defining situation between me and my mother. And where my mother told me not to do these things. Pastor and others said, do not do this. And I went against her will. I did just the opposite. I began to feel the treatment that was being given to me and other blacks. So that's when I said, I want to do it. And God rest my soul, my mom's soul, she eventually said, okay. And, that was it. Good question.
When the Freedom Ride started, I was scared. I thought, nope, we'll all be killed. I'm not going to do this. I was in New Orleans in school then and going to the Corps meetings. They started the Freedom Ride this next summer. I began to feel more and more, I got to do something. I got to be in this on the right side. You can't just do nothing and say nothing. I had heard Dr. King, Martin Luther King, who was in Atlanta where I live, he had said that he wanted white people in the movement. And I felt invited to be in the movement by hearing him say that. So I did. I went with a group that was going from Atlanta. We got a bus from Atlanta to Montgomery, spent the night in Montgomery after the first part of the trip, our Freedom Ride. There were 9 of us that day. That was in June. There had been many others before, and there were a bunch came out. Another bus went to Jackson, Mississippi, where we knew what was going to happen because it had been happening regularly, and that is you get off a bus on a Freedom Ride and you get arrested. And the way they did it was we all went into the white waiting room, and the police immediately arrested the black people, and then they go around to the white people and say, are you with them? And if you said yes, you go too. So I was kind of scared, not sure what I should do, but I did. I was sentenced, I believe, to 6 months, but you could get bail, and a lot of people were trying not to get any bail, but I had planned only to do this for about 2 weeks. So I stayed for 16 days, and then I think the NACP, if that's who it was, paid my bail and got me out. And I went home. And I went home in kind of a bad emotional and mental state because I had seen a very concentrated example of the power that some people have over other people. I had been aware of the power that white people in the South had over black people, and I'd been ashamed of it and worried about wanting to change it. The guards had complete, utter control over the prisoners. And if prisoners did not try to do what they wanted, they'd kill them. And they told me that on the way out. They said, if people behaved as you had behaved, we'd kill them. And I said, well, how do you kill them? And the woman who was the white guard woman, told me, lots of ways to kill people. And the only one I remember that she named them from, the only one I remember was the fire hose. Drown them and knock them out, whatever. So I went home pretty scared about the whole question of how people behave when they have power over each other. And it was pretty depressing, pretty bad. But the movement, I believe, did make a difference to change a little bit of that power between the races in the South. And one of the reasons that we're here is we hope that you all are going to see things that aren't right and go do something. Just at some point decide, I cannot tolerate this. I will not tolerate it. I'm going to stand up and say no to whatever you believe is the stuff that's not right that's going on in our society. And there's plenty. And we need you to take over. For what we did, we helped a little bit. You can help us some more.
I recall my mother, the principal of not this school because I was at Rowan at the time, telling all of us, these so-called freedom riders are coming to town. It's best for you not to get involved. The preachers, the deacons, every community leader told us, when these so-called freedom riders come to town, you better not. And when you use the word better not with some emphasis, put on better not, you better not. It was something you didn't do. So this particular Wednesday, the freedom riders came to town. And they was at the Masonic Temple on Lynch. A good friend of mine by the name of Troy Howard, good friend, he and I decided to go to the Masonic Temple to find out what was happening. So upon our arrival, we couldn't get in. So we chose to stand on the outside to see whether or not we could hear what was happening. And at the end, the presenter said, well, we need some locals to join us at the Greyhound bus station. We wasn't interested in joining the Freedom Riders at the bus station or any other station. But we chose to go down to the bus station so we could see what was happening. And where Greyhound bus station is, the traffic was heavy. You just couldn't walk across Lamar. You had to run across Lamar. I was a track star at Rowan, so I was a little faster than Troy. So I ran over across Lamar, and right before the door of the Greyhound bus station, Troy, well, if Troy was here today, which he's not, Troy would tell you that he was pulling me from the collar, trying to keep me from entering the bus station. But since Troy's not here, I'm going to tell you the truth. Troy pushed me inside of the bus station. And by being pushed inside, I was arrested. I was told to sit in a corner. Thereafter, I was put into a paddy wagon. And I was taken to punishment at the age of 13. 13 years of age, I'm in punishment. Naive as all outdoors. Not only was I in punishment at 13, I was on death row. You all know what death row is? So you do? Smarter than me. I didn't know. I just knew I was someplace I didn't want to be and was told that this is death row. So I began inquiring. I asked the gentleman about my reason for being here. And he said, well, one major statement, you must be here because you killed a white man. I said, no, I didn't kill a white person. Another guy, Mandingo type, brother, with muscles everywhere, short brother, he kind of walked from the end of the bunk to the front and looked at me and said, I know why you're here. And I'm very interested now because he made that statement with authority. And I'm thinking, you know why I'm here. Please tell me. He said, you're here because you raped a white woman. After hearing those words, my whole life came before me. And I tell you, young man, I wasn't as naive as I was when I came in there. Because I knew the seriousness of rape. I knew the consequences of rape. I knew what could happen to a person for raping a person. Although it was no rape, no fair, no being in the wrong place, being born in the wrong city and state, all of that landed me in punishment.
Antonio Walker. Antonio? All right. I want to know what the scary part is like when you made it. To ask him. He's right there.
I think for the most part, I was not in Jackson, I was in Canton. A law officer by the name of Billy Noble, was sheriff of Madison County, put the worst beating on me that I've ever received.
And it was very unlikely that I would ever get involved in the civil rights movement because my father was in the Ku Klux Klan and my granddad was in the Ku Klux Klan. And most of my kin people were. I grew up in the segregated South 50 years ago. But I was lucky to go to my church school in Montgomery, Alabama, Huntington College. And that's where I met Reverend Martin Luther King and Mrs. Rosa Parks. And they started me on a life of crime. In those days, going to jail and going to prison was not a badge of dishonor. It was a badge of honor. Excuse me. We were faced with trying to change a centuries-old habit of segregation, and before that, slavery. So when I went to Huntington College, I didn't know that I was going to get involved in the civil rights movement. But I was assigned a paper in school to write about the racial problem in sociology class. And 5 of us from my Huntington College, all white, went to meet Martin Luther King at his church, or at Reverend Abernathy's church, where Dr. King was speaking. And while we were there, the police surrounded the church to arrest us. At the end of the meeting, Dr. King came over and said, "They've surrounded the church and they've sent me word that the 5 of you white students are going to be arrested." And I said, "Dr. King, we need to escape." And he laughed and he said, "Well, they've surrounded the church." And I said, "Well, what we need to do is we need to try to escape, because we don't want to get our parents in trouble, and we don't want to get in trouble with our parents, and we don't want to get our school in trouble." So Dr. King said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go to the front of Reverend Abernathy's church, and Reverend Abernathy and Mrs. Parks can take you down to the basement. And if I go out the front of the church, the police and the news people may all run around there. If they do, then Reverend Abernathy can open the door and you can run for it." So that's what happened. As we waited for Dr. King to go out the front door, Mrs. Parks put her hand on my elbow and she said, "Bob, if you see something wrong, you have to do something about it. You have to take action. You can't study it forever." So I know I haven't washed that elbow since Mrs. Parks touched it. Those were heroic days, and sure enough, when Dr. King went out the front, the police all ran around there, and they opened the door, and the funniest thing you've ever seen is 5 little white boys running all out through the black community in Montgomery, Alabama, trying to escape from our own police. We had stepped over the line of segregation, and we were now outlaws. And I listened to Mrs. Parks, and I began to take notice. I began to take action. And eventually I joined the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And that's when I first came to Mississippi as a Freedom Rider.
For Bob.
Bob.
Question for Bob.
Yeah.
You're Bob.
Question for Bob.
What was your biggest being the son and grandson of a member of the Ku Klux Klan? What was your influence being a white male?
grandson of Klansman. What was it like being in the? How did you decide to take part in this?
Oh, okay. Yes, being the son and grandson of Klansmen, how did I decide to become involved? Well, first of all, it was the young black people who went to the lunch counter sit-ins. Lunch counter sit-ins, you will recall, started on February the 1st, 1960, in Greensboro, North Carolina, when 4 freshmen in college went and sat down at the lunch counter. They were inspirational to me. Even though I came from a Klan family, I knew that segregation was wrong. I knew that discrimination against anybody because of the color of their skin or their religion or their national origin, those things are not American. They're not what we are brought up to believe in. So when I saw those young people in the lunch counter sit-ins, young black men and young black women of the South saying, I'd rather sit here until you arrest me than to participate in segregation any longer.
I was 9 years of age when Emmett Till was murdered. How many of you all remember Emmett Till? Do you all remember what happened to him? Okay, let me start right. Go ahead, let me start with you. What's your name? Okay, what happened?
He was big.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
he was tortured before he was lynched though.
Okay. The husband and one of the brothers, I believe, went to the house and literally took him out of the house. And anyways, they severely beat him, and then they had thrown his body into a body of water. And so when his mom had the funeral, she did not cover it up. She did not have a closed casket funeral. It was open because she wanted people to see what had actually been done to her child. And that was a very dangerous time back then. And I remember hearing about that, and I remember they even put a song out about that. So being 9 years of age, you can imagine I was very frightened during that time. But also, like growing up in Mississippi, I saw the color signs, I saw the white signs. Well, let me back up. When we were born, the black children, as we're called, well, now they call us black, but on our birth certificate, what's on your birth certificate?
African American.
Well, that may be on yours, but that's not what was on mine. It was Negro on mine. And then we went from being Negroes to being called colored when I was a girl coming up, and then it was African American, and then they started calling us black. But anyways, I saw the color signs on bathroom doors, on water fountains. The restaurants were segregated. You could not go there to eat. If you were black, you could not go where the white people were. Any stores, thank you. You couldn't go to any stores or anything where the white people were. So I knew then that it was something very wrong with them. But being 15 years of age, what could I really do? So anyways, I started attending meetings at the Masonic Temple building on Lynch Street. Do you all know where that is? Okay, I started going there. They would bring speakers in, these civil rights workers, and I met James Bevel and Bernard Lafayette, and they were talking about a lot of things that really made sense to me, not only to me, but other young black children as well. And so we started listening. Now, I didn't tell my parents what I was doing because I could not have attended those meetings, okay? So I lied. Now, it is wrong to lie. You all know that. So, it's wrong to lie. We do it sometimes, but it's wrong. And see, I was a very obedient child growing up. So if my parents asked me to do something, I would do it because I didn't like spankings, because they hurt. So when I decided to go down to the Trailway bus station, I didn't tell my parents about that either, because they would have told me no. They would have told me, Lois, it's dangerous. We don't want you going. And that would have been the end of that. I would not have gone. So I didn't tell my siblings, you know, and you all know why I didn't tell. You all already know it. No, some of them have told on you, all right? So I could not tell them, especially him, because I would not have been able to go down to the Trailway bus station. So anyways, it was 11 of us, and we went down to the Trailway bus station, and we went to the white ticket counter. And that was a no-no, because back in the days, they thought that black people should stay in their place. So I never felt that I had a place to stay in. I felt that wherever whites could go, I should be able to go also. And I still feel that way today. White people thought that they were really superior over black people. They thought they were better than black people. And so, you know, I knew all of that. I knew all of that was wrong. So we went down, and they asked us to leave and go to the black ticket counter. Over there, the colored. It was colored at the time. So anyway, we refused to go, and then we were asked again to go to the, you know, go to your side, go to the black side, go to the black ticket counter. So we would not go. So we were arrested. They charged us with breach of peace. We did not disturb anybody's peace, but my peace was truly disturbed being 15 years old, because I felt that I had not done anything wrong. I was only doing what I felt in my heart was the right thing to do, trying to make something better. I was fingerprinted, took a mug shot that you all saw in that book. I was in jail for a period of 11 days. My parents came down, they could not see me. And that was very heartbreaking for my parents. It was devastation for them, I'm sure, to be told that your child is someplace, but when you go down, you can't see them. So you don't really know if that child is there or not, do you? Initially, young people, I was not afraid, because at 15 years of age, you don't fear a lot of things. But much later on, I thought about it, that when they took us off in that black paddy wagon, that they could have beat us. They had beaten Emmett Till. I was 9 years of age, but I remember that. They really could have killed us. So when I became a freedom rider, young people, it was not done to seek any kind of accolades. I did it because there was something wrong, and I wanted to help make something right.
Okay, so put this dress on.
That's cool. It's something that's really
Okay,
like.
the pleasure is mine. You all take care. My brother, take care.
Already?
You take care.
Thank you so much. Okay then.